What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Stocks by the Numbers. And today, as you can see, I'm talking about a company that I know a lot of people have heard of, very big in the tech sector. But first off, as you can see here, top of the screen, we have a Dow over 34,000. Market closed a couple of minutes ago. We have an S&P that closed above 4,000. NASDAQ touched below 11,200. And let me tell you something. In my opinion, I think this is ridiculous. I do not think that we should have had a big green day today, especially with so much economic data coming out tomorrow. A lot of it has been negative as of late, and the Fed talking about raising rates yet again. And I'm sorry, I've said this once on this channel, I'll say it again. That is not a good thing when the Fed raises rates. And what we're seeing is blatant market manipulation, in my opinion. You are seeing them rise up, all of you guys going into the meeting, locking you in with a full sense of security and profitability, and then all of a sudden later that day or even the next day we'll have a Dow that'll pull back, over 1,000 points, and all of a sudden everything across the board is overvalued and needs to sell off and needs to pull back, right? So it only makes sense after it happens, right? So, I just want to start off with that because I'm sure a lot of people are involved in a lot of different positions. And a day like today, with a volatile, uncertain day like tomorrow, especially with the markets being closed on Thursday and only half a day Friday, Thanksgiving here in the States, my apologies. But more importantly, in my opinion, in these times, like I always say, if you're in profit, don't be afraid to, liquidate most of the position, take profits off the table, and tuck away that money and secure it. Whether it's in cash or gold or even another stock position, it really doesn't matter, right? When we're green in these uncertain times, don't be afraid to take it off the table. That's just a little tidbit of information, though. That's just my opinion, how I would play it here in this market. But anyway, we're moving into Nvidia Corporation, again, a company that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. They make graphic cards and video cards for your computer, for your car, for the screens at McDonald's. I don't know. Anything with the screen, I know that Nvidia is trying to get their product in there, right? And I respect the grind. What I don't respect, price of the stock. I'm going to tell you why. First of all, we had almost a 5% pop today, which in my opinion, definitely in the wrong direction. This company should be seriously lower, and it's justified if we look at the numbers, right? First of all, look at this market cap, over $390 billion market cap. We come down for the yearly revenue, $27 billion. $27 billion for the year. The company's worth almost $400 billion. Where? When? How? Just a couple of questions for you. But, like I always say, total revenue to market cap comparison, let's say 5 times this number, right? That is $135 billion. That is 5 times total revenue. We have looked at a lot of other brand name companies here on this channel that are not currently trading 5 times revenue when potentially they should. And here we have a company that's trading like 15 times total revenue. And then for some reason has an up day with a PE north of 68. Historically, this company has always been tremendously overvalued. And not only going back a few years, I mean, look at this explosion, right? This is, where is it? There we go, March 2020, right? So that's pandemic. Look at this. Stock was 50. 7 months later, the stock's 150. A year after that, it's north of 300. So the stock went from 50 to 150 to 300. Translation, the stock went from 50 to over 300 in like a year and a half. Now, I'm sorry, but that doesn't happen. Now, respect to Nvidia, right? Because if we look, first of all, we look annually, phenomenal for the last couple of years. We look quarterly, minus the last couple of quarters, the company is doing very well. I am not knocking their business, the business model, the profits they're taking in. Everything is phenomenal. The only problem is this stock here at 160 should be at 60. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like I always say, pricing and timing. Remember, when I initially make a video talking about a company being overvalued, usually a lot of people, they jump in the comment section and they try to defend their position, defend their company. And believe me, I completely understand that and I respect it. But at the end of the day, like I always say here on this channel, it's all about pricing and timing. Why buy a stock at price X when you can get filled at price Y? And, with a lot of companies that I spoke about saying that they were overvalued, it more times than none, it does work out in my favor and more importantly, in your favor, if you took some of my advice. And all of these companies, whether it's brand name tech companies like this or speculative EV companies like the PSNYs and the Mullins, it is all about pricing and timing. Why buy PSNY north of 10 when I know I can buy it at 4, right? Why buy Mullen at 80 cents when we can get it at 30 cents? And same thing here with Nvidia. Even though the stock was north of 300 and now you're getting it at potentially a 50% discount, like I said, these are hard, uncertain economic times, and the stock is already overinflated. That's why I feel, in my opinion, you can definitely wait and sit back and get a much better entry here than 160. And remember, even in the short term, if they pump this up to 200 here in the next couple of weeks or couple of months, remember, chances are, you're watching my channel, you're part of this community, because you're looking at the long-term investment, not necessarily just the short-term trade. So would it suck that you missed out on, a 20% pop in the short term? Absolutely. But if this pops up to 200 and then pulls back to 90, you're not going to tell me, well, it was up after you bought it. You're going to say, damn, my average price is 160, now it's at 90. That's the way you're going to look at it. That's the point I'm trying to make. So again, market cap and PE just out of control. You come down here, this is this Market Watch article that came out a few days ago after they posted earnings. Actually, very good article because it talks about how revenue fell 17%, earnings were cut in half, right? They try to blame China. Gaming revenue fell 51%, and that is really their bread and butter, right? Because if it fell 51%, then that means it was about $3 billion. So if they do about $3 billion in gaming revenue for the quarter times 4 quarters, that's $12 billion a year in gaming revenue. And they said the company made what, $27 billion in total revenue. So you got like 40% of your revenue is coming from one sector, the gaming sector. So if the gamers aren't buying your cards, it's going to be harder to get rid of the inventory. And that's what we're seeing here. Product inventory nearly doubled to $4.5 billion in the third quarter compared with $2.25 billion a year ago and less than $4 billion in the prior quarter, right? So a red flag 3 months ago because inventory hit almost $4 billion. Now it's even more of a red flag because now it's up to $4.5 billion. What that means, they're making the cards, no one's buying them. Reason being is because the economy is rough here. We are dealing with hyperinflation, and you're telling people in order to see, prettier flowers on a game on their monitor, they have to spend $1,000, $1,200 on a graphics card that chances are that's probably the same, if not slightly better than the previous one that's currently in their PC. So that is why I know they're basically hoping and praying and wishing upon a star that the gaming revenue really comes in here in the holiday season and they start pushing some of this inventory. And let me tell you something, they might, but also at the end of the day, they're not going to get rid of all that inventory. It is just not going to happen. And, again, they're hoping for the holiday revenue, and I just don't see it happening. Revenue reached peak in the quarter of $8.3 billion, and in the past 2 quarters, revenue has slowed with gaming demand sluggish. Look, talking about a new cycle. Look, and a decline in China data center due to COVID. Not right. As long as we can continue to blame COVID and blame China, then everyone acts like everything's okay inside the company. And at the end of the day, as we just showed, it's not okay. And their bread and butter sector is down over 50%, and their stock is now overinflated. This was the daily chart. I was trying to make this video earlier and show you guys that we had like an ascending triangle forming. And then, obviously I got caught up with a few things, but the stock ended up breaking out, and as you can see, closed over 160 with tremendous volume. Look at that, coming in, right at the last second here. And honestly, again, I would wait. Not knocking the company overall, but, just why buy at 160 when you could buy at 100? This is the daily. I mean, the RSI could keep rising. This stock has been absolutely raging since mid-October, and it makes no sense. Look at the MACD on the daily, north of 7.5. I just feel like it's so rare that you see values like that. That's why I feel that this company should definitely start to pull back. We're looking here on the weekly. RSI 50, it could keep rising, but again, look at this massive pop, and it looks like we're forming like a megaphone here, which tells us that we don't know if it's going to be bullish or bearish. The traders are kind of fighting each other, but at the end of the day, again, even in the short term, if it pops up here, which it shouldn't, it should definitely pull back to this bottom Bollinger Band. What is this, about 103.5? And as it sells off, this number will go lower. So, yeah, you want this to pull back to about 100, at least. That's conservatively. Because, again, if the stock price gets cut in half to 80, they're still trading, like 8 times total revenue, which could still be viewed as overvalued. And, I know I'm beating a dead horse here. We're looking at a lot of data, but, last couple of quarters, again, they took big hits. And then if we switch over here to the financials, we look at annually, just look at these ratios. The PE has always been relatively high, but, recently has just gotten out of control. Price to sales, these are healthy double-digit numbers here, trading 60 times cash flow and 16 times book value, right? Think about that. Think about a lot of other companies that we spoke about here on this channel, 16 times book value. And look at the profitability ratios, have taken massive hits here. Rising, pulling back here post-pandemic, rising back up to almost 27% return on assets, and now 14. Return on equity was up at 45, now 26. Return on invested capital, 31.5. Now it's north of 17.5. The gross margin also took a hit, going from 65 down to 55%. Operating margin percentage took a huge hit, going from almost 40% down to 13%, and the EBITDA, which we like to look at, which stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, very good indicator here for the financials, was north of 44 and is now sub 20. That is more than a 50% drop. Net margin percentage goes from 36.25% down to 11.5%. Men lie, women lie, numbers do not lie. Nvidia, in my opinion, in the numbers, overvalued. And I'm going to leave it there. So, once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. Just like everyone on YouTube says, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Helps out the algorithm. If you like the content I'm putting out, push the subscribe button. Helps me out personally. I appreciate it. But more importantly, I understand, like I always say, markets are rocky, markets are volatile, markets are uncertain. So I wish everyone success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Stay sharp going into tomorrow and even into Friday after the holiday, because I do feel that a lot of this economic data coming out tomorrow is really going to take us for a swing. So I just want you guys to stay sharp, and again, don't be afraid to take profits off the table if you do have them in a market like this, all right? But thanks for stopping by. If for some reason I don't talk to you guys here in the United States, do me a favor. I want to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. And for everyone else, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you guys in the next one.